ọjọ́ rẹ̀ bí àná dàgbò òmìnira 1960 nígbà yẹn things easy gẹ́gẹ́ bọ́ ṣe rí darúgbó tó mi lọ lòdùnú pàtí òmìnira òmìnira ìdí ìdàbí ẹ̀wọ̀ náírà wá ìlú polúkúrú mùsùn ewé tàgà tó jẹyàn wọn níṣu abẹ́ orí ewé rí ṣùgbọ́n ẹ ò fẹ́ rí abẹ́ orí àgbà ẹ̀rí àtẹnujẹ ló fẹ́ pa yín pẹ̀tẹ̀pẹ̀tẹ̀ taná ní ìpọ̀pá ẹni bá tàgbà kó lọ mọ́ ọ̀tẹ̀ ní ṣé bẹ́ẹ̀ lẹ́mọ̀.
Though Baldwin, in his famous quote on change, posited that change is inevitable, change will always occur, but application of direction to changes determines its progress. It is on this note that I welcome you to the most informative, educative, and your analytical program, Pinpoint, from the stable of your favorite radio frequency, High Power 102.7 FM in Raleigh, Owo. Pinpoint is a program that updates you on events and happenings that is reshaping the Nigerian system and polity. This is a program that informs you with detailed analysis of events across politics, security, economy, education, and an in-depth view of government policies with related trending issues in the Nigerian system.
wọ́n aṣọmọ jẹ́ẹ́jẹ́ ẹ̀jẹ̀ kan wọlé tán gbogbo ẹ̀jẹ̀ tán jẹ́ láwọ̀ kẹ́ṣẹ́ tó bá tún ṣe wẹ́rẹ́ lásìkò bò wọ́n ní kọ́ńtà tó lọ bẹ́ẹ̀ wọ́n ṣẹ̀nu mẹ́rẹ́ kàlùkàlù gbé nǹkan mi ìṣẹ̀nu wúyẹ́.
This program has a feedback segment where listeners are expected to call in to hear the views, opinions, and contributions to any topical issues discussed. It is on this note that I welcome you on board the program. My name is Akin Adebayo, your host on the program Pinpoint. I say a very big welcome to every one of you. The program is still Pinpoint. You can view us on our various social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X handle on High Power 102.7 FM. Likewise, you can communicate with us and contribute your own quota to the discussion via the studio line 081-377-473399. The Nnamdi Kanu issue is still very much fresh, particularly in the memory of the Igbo ethnic group, and it's equally taking its effect as well on the Yoruba ethnic group, because it appears the narrative is now being tilted towards ethnic sentiment. So we are going to be discussing more today on the Nnamdi Kanu's travail and the impact of providing leadership through good character utterances, and humility. In an era where voice of dissent echoes louder than ever, the essence of true leadership lies not in the volume of one's rhetorics, but in the integrity of one's character. Nnamdi Kanu, the charismatic founder of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, embodies a compelling yet cautionary narrative on this point. Emerging in the early 2010 through Radio Biafra, Kanu channeled deep-seated Igbo grievances over marginalization, nepotism, and post-civil war inequities into a fervent call for self-determination. Its initial appeal lay in its unflinching advocacy, drawing millions from the diaspora and homelands who saw him as a fearless symbol of resistance against perceived systemic oppression. Yet, as its movement evolved, so did the tenor of his message, from impassionate plea for justice to broadcast, laced with inflammatory languages, calls for armed self-defense, and directives that incited violence, such as sit-at-home enforcement and threat against security forces. These sheets, however, highlight a pivotal lesson. Leadership devoid of incitement demands empathy, restraint, and a commitment to non-violence dialogue. Even amid profound injustice, Kanu's experiences, culminating in his November 20, 2025 last sentence for terrorism and incitement, reveals how provocative words can spiral into chaos, displacing communities, eroding trust, and inviting state crackdowns that exacerbate divisions rather than heal them. While his grievances were valid, rooted in calls for equity and unity, his method often crossed into its speech, fostering hatred, insecurity in Nigerian southeast through leaders like historical figures such as Obafemi Awolowo or Nelson Mandela navigated similar trails with moral authority, using wisdom to build bridges rather than burn them. As we delve deeper into Kanu's saga, we urge you to prioritize character, driven leadership, one listen with humility, and seek solution via inclusive reform. In a nation as divisive and fragile as Nigeria, embracing this path could transform grievances into progress, ensuring that advocacy unites rather than divides. Like we said, we are going to go very deep into the Nnamdi Kanu saga. This is something that doesn't just start with Nnamdi Kanu. Biafra has a historical background. Biafra started building up after the first coup that was led by Kaduna Eziogu, whereby most of the people that fell victim of the coup happens to be the Hausa Fulani ethnic group and some very few Yorubas. Now there was a counter coup led by General Tiwe Danjuma, in a case whereby General Akin Adebayo was caught, was arrested at Major Kunifaji's house back then in Ibadan. Kunifaji, a Yoruba man, insisted that Akin Adebayo is his visitor and he cannot allow them to kill Akin Adebayo, that rather he should be killed alongside Akin Adebayo. Eventually, Kunle Fajuyi and Akin Rosie were both killed in the counter coup led by General T.Y. Danjuma. Immediately after the coup, the Igbos in the northern part of Nigeria were faced with another issue back in the north. The Hausa Fulanis there started saying that their eyes are open. It was actually said in Hausa, and they started chasing away the Igbos, that they should leave the Hausa community, that they should leave the Hausa region. This thereby led to the relocation of virtually all the Igbos, if not all, but majority of them, left the northern part of Nigeria and relocated to the southeastern part of the country. Like we made it to understand, there will not be fire without smoke. It was as a result of the first coup that led to the killing of the Hausa Fulanis, that actually led to the second coup, led by T.Y. Danjuma, and which eventually led to the Igbos being chased out from northern Nigeria. They now went back to the southeast. It was after this that General Gowon became the head of state. Ojukwu, being a senior to Gowon in the Nigerian army, in the army hierarchy, insisted that he cannot give respect to a junior officer, that he would rather declare his own state, and that was what gave birth to the Biafra. After the renouncement of Biafra by Ojukwu when he came back from exile, Mazi Nwazuruke now picked it up again and recruited it to be MASOP, Movement for the Actualization of the Sovereign State of Biafra, with Nnamdi Kanu being his deputy then. Nnamdi Kanu, Mazi Nwazuruke believes so much in dialogue. He said it emphatically that achieving the Biafra history or achieving the Biafra dream or vision, as the case may be, cannot be achieved through violence. This is something that was done initially by Ojukwu, but now that a better approach of dialogue, a better approach of integrating ourselves into the political system is more appropriate in achieving the Biafra agenda. But Kanu was not satisfied with this, and that was how he created his own version of the Biafra, named IPOB, Indigenous People of Biafra. Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the Indigenous People of Biafra IPOB, has used radio broadcasts via Radio Biafra and public speeches since around 2009 to advocate for the Igbo secession from Nigeria, framing it as a response to perceived marginalization and Fulani dominance. His rhetoric often escalated to calls for armed resilience, civil disobedience, direct threats, such as statement in 2015 urging supporters to acquire guns and bullets for self-defense, and warning that Nigeria would become worse than war-torn Somalia without Biafra's independence. These utterances, while galvanizing a separatist movement, have had profound multifaceted effect on Nigeria's southeast region. Below are some effects of the marginalization of the broadcast. It, however, heightened Igbo nationalism and diaspora engagement. Kanu broadcasts popularized the Biafra cause, reviving memories of the 1967 to 1970 civil war, which killed up to 1 million Igbos. He built a global network of supporters, including protests in London and the US, fostering Igbo identity and demands for equity in Nigeria's political and economic system. Organizations like the World Igbo Congress amplifies its message, leading to increased diaspora funding and awareness. From there, he moved to civil disobedience as a leverage. Early non-violence tactics, inspired by figures like Martin Luther King Jr., pressured the government on issues like restructuring Nigeria. This contributed to a broader conversation on federalism during the 2014 National Conference. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's version of hip-hop no doubt brought about so many violence, instability and division. It incited attacks and casualties. Nigerian Court Justice James Omotosho, November 20, ruling, founded Kanu's orders directly led to deadly violence, including attacks on security forces and civilians. Examples include calls to deal decisively with police, linked to 170 to 200 security personnel's deaths in the southeast. Ordered during 2020 NSAS protest to burn Lagos and the Muritala Mohammed International Airport, resulting in property destruction. Specific incidents: burning of Igbo-owned shops for defined sit-at-home order. The 2021 murder of former aide Ahmed Gulak in Imo State, claimed by IPOB, and the killing of a soldier and his wife with mutilated reports. Now, Gulak was killed. A female soldier and her husband that went home for marriage were equally killed. Is this part of what we are talking about when you're advocating for your own sovereign states? And aside that, calling for some properties to be burnt in Lagos. Why did it restrict it to only Lagos? Now, Southeastern escalated into problem. Prescription at a terrorist group. Attack rose, including on police stations, government facilities, and foreign embassies. Amnesty International documented over 150 extrajudicial killings of pro-Biafra protesters by security forces in response, creating a circle of reprisal. The Eastern Security Network, that is the ESN, IPOB armed wing, has been accused of banditry and clashes, worsening regional instability. The sit-at-home enforcement paralyzed commerce, schools, and daily life in Igbo states, leading to economic losses in billions of naira. This bred fear, family separation, and internal Igbo division. Some leaders, like the Ohaneze Indigbo, criticized him for inflicting ethnic tension without viable solutions. Kanu's word led to his 2015 arrest and 2021 redemption from Kenya, culminating in a 2025 life sentence for terrorism, 4 current lifetimes. This deepens perception of ethnic bias in Nigeria judiciary, with comparison to lighter sentences for Boko Haram, fueling Igbo resentment. Now, when Honorable Justice James Omotosho dispensed his judgment, there was this uproar then that it is kind of ethnic sentiment, sort of. The question is this: was Awolowo not sentenced to life imprisonment by a fellow Yoruba man? Of course, he was sentenced to life imprisonment by a fellow Yoruba man. The fact that someone committed an offense, does it now give others the prerogative to do the same? Now, some people equally begin to ask the question: Sunday Igboho, didn't he do the same? Sunday Igboho's approach to secession was completely different, or let's say to self-governance was completely different. Sunday Igboho went on negotiation. He held rallies. Sunday Igboho never incited any ethnic group against each other. In comparison to what Nnamdi Kanu did, he went as far as saying that any Christian Igbo worshipper that worship in a Yoruba-owned church is not a serious Igbo, that he should be counted to be a bastard. Now, aside that, he pitted Yoruba against the Igbo again, politically, particularly when it comes to the issue of the NSAS. Why was this so emphatic on saying that they should burn down some properties owned by the Yorubas in the NSAS issue in Lagos? And this eventually culminated to the saying of Lagos is no man's land, which has bridled on necessary and immaterial relationship between the Yorubas and the Igbos, 2 ethnic groups that have been living in peace and harmony for a very long time, that marriages has interwoven them, Economic business has interwoven them. All because of one man's speech, the whole sky is now coming down. This is quite unjust. Like you made to understand, you can join us via our social media handle, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, and on iPower 1027 FM, and our studio line 081 377 47339.
Wọ́n wá sáré ògbó, wọ́n aṣọ ọmọ jẹ́ẹ́jẹ́. Ẹ̀jẹ̀ kan wọlé tán, gbogbo ẹ̀jẹ̀ tán jẹ́ láwọ̀ kẹ́ṣẹ́. Tó bá tún ṣe wẹ́rẹ́ láti kògùn wá ní kọ́dọ̀ tó lọ bẹ̀rẹ̀. Wọ́n á ṣẹ̀nu mẹ́rẹ́, kàlùkàlù gbé nǹkan mi ṣẹ̀nu wúyẹ́. Làbí tún ti wọlé, ta ló dìbò fún? Pàṣọ tàbí iná yálé, ọ̀bẹ lórí àjà fún.
In reflecting on the trajectory of Nnamdi Kanu, the founder of Indigenous People of Biafra, IPOB, his story served as a stark cautionary tale for aspiring leaders in fractured society like Nigeria, sentenced to life imprisonment on November 20, 2025 by Justice James Omotosho on charges including terrorism, incitement to violence, and running an unlawful group. Kanu's path underscores how the pursuit of noble goals, such as addressing ethnic marginalization and advocating for self-determination, can unravel when laced with inflammatory rhetorics. What began as a revival of Igbo nationalism through Radio Biafra broadcast in the early 2010 escalated into calls for armed resistance, threat against security forces, and enforcement of sit-at-home orders that disrupted lives and economics in the Southeast. This incitement, as ruled by the court, contributed to over 400 deaths in Imo State alone between 2019 and 2021, cycles of reprisal, and the proscription of IPOB as a terrorist organization in 2017. This leadership, however, thrives on good character, integrity, empathy, and a commitment to non-violence persuasion. Kanu's experiences highlight the perils of deviating from his words while mobilizing a diaspora and igniting debates on federalism, ultimately polarized communities, deepens ethnic divides, and invited state repression. Post-sentencing reaction, including protests and songs decrying the verdict as politically motivated, reveals a lingering resentment over perceived selective justice. Bandits and jihadists often face lighter scrutiny or negotiation, fueling argument that Kanu's punishment stems more from challenging the status quo than from the acts themselves. Yet, IPOB's recent pledge to pursue peaceful self-determination signals a potential pivot, echoing calls from figures like Osita Chidoka for renouncing violence. The enduring lesson is clear. Leaders must embody moral authority, fostering unity through dialogue rather than division through provocation. Kanu's fall from a freedom fighter to a life sentence convict illustrate that incitement erodes legitimacy, invites backlash, and hinders progress. In Nigeria's volatile landscape, where grievances abound, the effective leadership demands character that inspires trust, not fear, channeling passion into constructive reforms, legal advocacy, and inclusive governance. As appeal looms and debate rages, Kanu's saga reminds us the path to justice is paved with restraint, not rhetorics that ignite chaos. Only then can true changes endure. It is on this note that we will be drawing the curtain on the program today. with my special thanks to the General Manager, Engineer Paul Olotu, the Head of Marketing, Mr. Kong, and Head of Programs, Mr. Elijah Olurotimi. And also to you, my listeners, I want to say a very big thank you to you all for listening to me today. We hope that by this time next week again, you will be on board with me to listen to more exciting political economic issues that we'll be discussing on our program, Pinpoint. My name again is Akin Adebayo, a regular host. Thank you. We meet again next week.